As you're probably aware, we're going to be talking about college radio, which I think is a very fascinating thing for us to talk about because it relates to so many issues with like music and communities, obviously, but also like the music business and industry and local politics and issues at the level of local communities and the educational value for students, as well as the reach that college radio has all over the country and all over the world, and music technology. And all of those really fascinating things. And here at UVA, we have 2 college radio stations, so it's definitely an issue close to home. Virginia has a lot of colleges, so it has a lot of college radio stations. So there's a lot of cool stuff going on in our state, and it's meaningful to me personally because, I shouldn't touch the microphone, but because I am a DJ. I write about music, I listen to music, and it plays an important role in my life, so this is going to be cool. So just to get a sense of the scope of what we're talking about, in the United States there are anywhere from about 600 to 1,000 college radio stations. It's hard to get an exact count, but like even the lower end of that range is a big number. They're incredibly diverse. So some of them are freeform, some are not. There are AM, FM, online streams, playing all different kinds of music, all different formats of music, and very diverse DJs. So there's no one thing that college radio looks like or sounds like, but we're going to be exploring some of that diversity today. Okay, cool. I was talking with Nathan, who's a general manager of college radio here at UVA, and I learned some very interesting things about history of the college radio. So something that I didn't know is that the history of college radio is the history of radio. So like the earliest radio stations that existed were at universities because like physics departments wanted to experiment with radio technology, and so they set up these stations, less so interested in like music and programming, but just to sort of have it set up and maybe like broadcast lectures or university news or things like that. And especially at big Midwestern universities is where a lot of this stuff was starting to happen. So that was in the 1920s, was that first wave of stations being created, and that's also when radio became like kind of commonplace in American life and in our culture. But by World War II, a lot of those stations had fizzled out because, you know, college student life was taking a hit because people were going off to fight the war, and the academic departments that had created these stations were just no longer interested in maintaining them. But after the war, this kind of second wave of stations arose where there was sort of a revitalization, and that's when WTJU was created, which is one of the stations here at UVA, and just recently celebrated its 60th birthday. So happy birthday, WTJU. This is also when a lot more stations were FM stations, which is more conducive to really focusing on music and programming of that nature because the sound quality can be so much better. And then this third wave of stations arose in the 70s and 80s and was when college radio really began, I think, to kind of acquire its reputation of playing a lot of rock music, being associated with the underground or the counterculture or things that are more independent, kind of having its musical reputation. So here at UVA, we have 2 stations, WTJU and WXTJ, which share a studio space in Lambeth Commons. Cool, a lot of people don't know that Lambeth is where the stations are. It's really annoying for DJs because we have to go all the way out there, but it's a nice space. And both of the stations air programming 24/7. So the vast majority of those hours are real human DJs doing the programming, playing the music, and there's like a few hours in the wee hours of the night where we have like a computerized DJ because like we can't expect a student to be there at 4 in the morning. So I would say that TJU is the more like official station. It's the one that's been around for 60 years, and it's primarily DJ'd by members of the Charlottesville community. Fewer students involved with it, and has a lot of listenership among faculty and staff here and in Charlottesville and sort of beyond across the country because there is that online stream so you can listen from anywhere. And then XTJ is the one that's completely student run, student staffed. I think it started like 4 or 5 years ago with just an online stream, and now it is on the airwaves. You can listen on a real radio, you can listen in your car. And TJU tends to have programs that are a little bit more set. So like, I don't know, Saturday mornings they'll play like classical music or something like that where there's kinds of themes. Whereas XTJ is totally freeform, meaning that DJs can play whatever they want. So, DJs can choose to create themes for themselves or have certain kinds of music they want to play. I have one friend who had like a hip hop show, and like that was just what he did. It was always hip hop. I know, like personally, my show is just like whatever, anything I want, anything I think is cool or interesting. Yeah, so it's our little history lesson. Okay. So I'm going to be talking a little bit about the relevance of college radio to music as a phenomenon. And that picture right there is one part of the library at the WTJU studio. So what's lining the walls is like records, just vinyl records, wall to wall. It's a room of like, it's bigger than this size. It's bigger than the room that we're in. That's just like wall to wall records and CDs, and there's drawers lining it with even more. So there's probably thousands of records in there, which is really cool. I think there's a lot of value in college radio maintaining this really vast physical libraries that they often do, because they're just such a valuable resource of music history and music collection, and can kind of sometimes have really unexpected stuff. So I was looking around in the WTJU studio on Wednesday, and Nathan showed me that we have this like extensive collection of Duke Ellington records, just like probably hundreds of Duke Ellington records, just like sitting in our library, which like, yes, I am glad that we have like a weird college radio station that inexplicably has an extensive collection of Duke Ellington music. I think that that's a good thing that exists. And if you're doubting that physical music formats still matter in the streaming age, I have some statistics of interest to you. So one, according to Nielsen, cassette sales were up last year. A lot of people still just like physically have the capacity. They have some kind of technology that will play cassettes, and there's kind of an attachment to them. Vinyl hit a 25-year sales high in the UK last year, and there's definitely like vinyl sales and vinyl collection is definitely a big trend. And then CDs are more alive than ever in my subjective opinion. But one thing that labels would do, like record labels, is send CDs of the latest music that they've released to college radio stations to get us to listen to them as a form of advertising. And if we listen to them and we like it, then we'll hold on to it and play it. So I think that that's a way for for all different kinds of music to find its way onto the airwaves, because like any like random band or label can send their CD to our station and we'll give it a listen, and if we like it, then like we'll play it to our listenership, and like that band or that music will get more fans. And I think that's really cool. And again, like talking about like why radio matters at all in like the streaming age of Spotify or YouTube, where you can just grab whatever song you want to listen to all the time. Like, why would you listen to radio where you kind of don't have control over what you're hearing? I think the value of college radio is that for students, for student DJs who are involved with the station, it's an opportunity to like practice running an artistic organization and have an outlet for self-expression, for being able to sort of indulge in their passions and comment on the world around them. And for listeners, college radio is providing this like well-curated playlist with a real human behind it who is managing the personal experience of that music and providing knowledgeable commentary. I think that music is an inherently social experience. Like, however much computers are, playing a part in the world of music, like at the end of the day, music primarily is made by people, it's heard by people, it happens in social gatherings, like anywhere from parties to listening in the car to shopping at Safeway to even in an elevator. There's that whole thing of elevator music. And so music is really part of our social fabric, and it facilitates our social connection. Your Spotify can generate like a pretty solid playlist, but I think that there's this special aspect of socialness and humanness and experience that you get when you're listening to a real human DJ, and you get that on the radio. So there's this quote up there by Liz Chude that says, "Radio has immediacy and intimacy, it's real time and has real staying power," which I think puts that well. And sort of kind of on like just a level of equality, on a college radio station, especially on a freeform station, DJs can play some cool band that they discovered on Bandcamp. They can play songs that were made by their friends in bands. They can interview their professors about what music was like and like when they were in college, and have their professor on and play like what kind of music they're into. Like, I think it's kind of the ultimate like power to the people, because if you're looking at like the more, I guess, commercial or community radio stations, like there are a lot of barriers for bands to be able to get their music played on there. And you know, you have a lot of just like really popular artists on like really big name labels, like getting their music played, and then no one else really has a chance. Whereas on college radio, like there's so much fewer barriers, like pretty much anyone can get played. And I think that's really valuable for music to have that. And then finally, college radio stations do a lot to support live music and support touring bands and local bands. College radio stations often help to put on concerts or even host shows in our studio. TJU has this program called Lambeth Live, where every Friday night they host a band to play live in their studio, and they broadcast it, and that's an opportunity for artists to have that chance to play and have that chance to get some more exposure. And XTJ often helps to put on house shows. In Charlottesville, you know, having both local bands and touring bands being able to play, and even host like other kinds of events, like they host an art show to promote all kinds of visual and performing arts, and then even like putting on festivals. So there's this annual music festival in Harrisonburg called Mac Rock, which this year is actually happening this weekend, but I can't go, which makes me sad. But it was launched by the JMU radio station, and the support had, you know, hundreds of underground artists play over the years. So college radio stations do a lot of work like within their communities. And these are some pictures of some of the things I've been talking about. So that, I guess, your left is Lambeth Live. It's a band playing in the studio. And then in the middle is a flyer for a house show that XTJ presented, helped put on. And that's a picture of the XTJ studio next to it with like flyers, some of which I think are shows that the station helped put on, some of which are just decoration, and it gives you a sense of what it looks like in there. And then the bottom two pictures are from an art show that XTJ put on. So there's art on the walls. They had, you know, student musicians come and play, and that was a really nice time. They sold art. Some of those proceeds went to charity, so it's a very good event all around, and a lot of my friends are in these pictures, so that's nice. Okay. So I'm going to be talking a little bit more about the impact that college radio stations have on their communities. First of all, just like vitalizing music scenes. If a town has a college radio station, that station can really help like feed the music scene in that community and support local artists, again, by playing them on their shows, by, you know, hosting concerts, and that really extends the presence of the college in a positive way into the community and like bridging that college and community gap. Again, like fostering a music scene by kind of bridging the gap between artists and audiences is some of that work that college radio stations do. Next point I have is like localism. I think that there is really an extreme amount of value in having local media outlets. College radio can, you know, provide PSAs and commentary relating to local issues and promoting local events, can play at local events and partner with local businesses. That picture there is TJU playing at a community event. I think I took it off their Facebook page, but that is what it looks like to me, and I know that they do that. College radio can really be a part of what makes a place special. So like if you like even just think about Charlottesville, like we're kind of, you know, a smaller kind of mid-sized college town in the South, which so you wouldn't think that we have this like incredibly vibrant arts and culture scene, but we absolutely do. And the fact that it's had WTJU, this college radio station, for the past 60 years is relevant to how that happened here. So college radio does a lot to help kind of introduce arts and culture and creative expression into people's daily lives and to foster this distinctive sense of community. And then the value for students. The students that DJ for college radio stations are often students who don't really fit in anywhere else necessarily. There's a lot of Brown residents who also DJ for the stations. It's that kind of similar thing of marching to the beat of a different drummer, I guess. The way that Nathan, the general manager, put it is it can kind of be like a fraternity for misfits, which I think is a nice way of putting it. College radio really provides a community. It provides an opportunity for students to bond over shared passions and have a platform to express themselves. So I know for me, technically being a DJ just means that I do my show for 2 hours a week, but an incredibly meaningful aspect of it has been making friends with people who have like the same interests that I have, the same sense of humor that I have, and really being tapped into this group of students who are artists and activists and doing these cool things and like supporting the cool things that I want to do. So there's a really enormous educational value for student DJs to be able to hone their voice, to learn media skills by being on the radio, and really pursuing their passions and like gaining friends who share those passions. And then I also think that college radio kind of characterizes the future of media. So like right now there's all this like, there's the internet, so like what are newspapers gonna do? And like all this kind of, I guess, crisis of traditional media into the new internet kind of age. Or people maybe like, people have shorter attention spans, they won't pay attention to, you know, long form journalism or radio or all of these kinds of traditional things. And I think that because college radio has always faced so many challenges, the challenges of a low budget, of trying to get listeners, of just like getting college students together to do something is very hard, and like adapting to technology, that's really made college radio stations very resilient and creative. It's given kind of an entrepreneurial spirit and made stations very nimble, which like helps them continue to thrive. And college radio is also kind of on the cutting edge of music, again, because it's a lot more of like DJs being able to play what they want. Student DJs are often very tapped into like music communities, what's happening, what's new or underground or diverse that's happening in music. Yeah, there's that value there. So now we're going to watch a trailer of a documentary called Dead Air, The Rise and Ruin of College Radio, which I think is an unnecessarily provocative title. But in this video, you'll hear people talking about that third wave of college radio stations, what was really happening in the 70s and 80s, about what college radio means to them, and some of the current issues that are facing college radio stations, like having their broadcast licenses sold, which is a whole thing. I think that this video is really helpful for understanding like what a grand phenomenon college radio really is. And then you won't just be hearing my voice all the time, you'll hear some other people's voices.
That's all you ever hear. Radio's dead. Radio's dead.
College radio took American music from the failure of punk rock in the late 70s to the success of alternative rock in the early 1990s.
You know, it was just so different than listening to what was on the radio and that you would go see in a big arena or something. It was really about having this secret that was shared across state lines.
If you had a college radio station and you had a club within listening distance of that college radio station, you had the potential for a band to come through town. You had the potential for a scene to form.
I'd hear music on the radio, I'd go to the record store, and buy the records I really love.
You really felt like you were part of a nation. It allowed for young people who were bohemian to feel that they could own these public spaces, that they could at least have permission to be in these public spaces. Now, I'm not saying that you can't have a great Spotify playlist that people identify with, but it just doesn't have that same quality of like we are inhabiting this space in this exact time and place.
There's always been more music than you can ever discover, right? And I guess now it's just kind of shoved more in our face how much more music there is than we'll ever have time to listen to.
I miss the curators. That's what you miss. You miss the curators. You miss the DJs. They chose good bands. They sifted through the bullshit for you. There's too much. I mean, no one can listen to everything. You need somebody to guide you.
Supporters of KUSF Radio are gathered on the University of San Francisco campus right now to protest the sudden sale of the FM station. The station's signal was sold yesterday to the University of Southern California, which will use that frequency to broadcast classical music. KUSF's indie rock programming is now available only on the internet.
The universities often put these deals into motion over the summer when there's fewer students around, or they often try to do it in steps, like what happened in Atlanta, I think with WRUK, where they tried to just get rid of half the programming day instead of the entire programming day. That was a period of time when it seemed to be happening every month. There seemed to be a new station. There was KTRU there was Vanderbilt University, and then there was KUSF. And the KUSF situation became such a huge shit show for the two colleges involved due to the activists in San Francisco. They were very successful, I think, in putting second thoughts into the heads of just about every college and university around the country. The KUSF case, I think, made it clear that it wasn't going to be easy. That you might be able to sell your college radio station, but you should expect possibly a very huge and very, very expensive and lengthy fight about it.
When it's coming out of everybody's car radio at the same time and everyone's listening to the same thing and have a shared experience, you can listen to podcasts whenever you fucking want. You might have listened to one episode and another episode. It's not the same thing.
If you just kept your radio tuned to a college station in the 80s, you might have heard that hip-hop show after the hardcore show, after the main block of programming, and now you never have to go to that other genre if you don't want to. What happens to dialogue? What happens to diversity? How diversity is different when it's a lot of streams side by side?
I think of college radio stations as being more adventurous and more current in terms of music and culture than community radio stations. I think of community radio stations as being much more conservative musically. They're sticking to styles, that have been fairly static styles for the last 40 or 50 years, such as folk and blues and reggae.
For a lot of streaming services, you don't really have a sense of who they are as personalities, whatever. You don't even really know if they're real, is whatever, Justin Timberlake really curating his own list on beats? I kind of doubt it,
With the resurgence of vinyl, I mean, it's like we went as fast as we could to throw that away and get rid of it as much as possible, and here it is coming back. I feel, to some degree, a little bit about the same way about radio.
We still crave connection, and we crave the human voice, and we crave weird opinions and humor and all the things that only a person can bring. From the 1950s and before, when early rock and roll and before that, like, DJs have always been that voice in the night that makes you realize you're not alone, and I think that continues. I was tuning the shining light that dialed to anything my radio advised. With every one of those late night stations.
Wait for it.
Any hip-hop people ever come on fucking Prairie Home Companion? Yeah, well, they played them on college radio. They were hip-hop shows.
So that was that. Where I discovered this video is a couple weeks ago, I guess, there was a college radio symposium hosted by WTJU, that happened over at Open Grounds, that brought together people who've just been doing college radio for a long time. They were DJs, they were general managers at stations, they write about it. This is definitely a thing that people, once it means something to you, people carry it on their whole lives. Obviously I most enjoy being a DJ because I like, hearing myself talk and being able to force my own weird music tastes on everybody else. But, you can be involved regardless of who you are, where you are in life, just listening, and, getting involved with your local community and the local radio and music and art that's happening there. So I have some closing thoughts, some closing quotations. So I didn't know that Barack Obama talked about college radio, but apparently he talks about a lot of stuff. Because that's what presidents have to do. They have to care about everything. So by empowering students to add their voices and opinions to the airwaves and connecting listeners to new ideas and artists, college radio fosters creativity, promotes emerging musicians, and serves as a platform for students to engage with one another. I think that puts it pretty well. He must have had some very good speechwriters. And this quote definitely focuses on the value for students, that educational and social value for student DJs. But like I said, I think that an entire community benefits from having that distinctive local outlet, a way to get local issues talked about and addressed. One of our latest PSAs that we were all reading during our shows was explaining to listeners like what's happening with Trump's funding plans for our arts organizations and how that's going to impact our station and impact Charlottesville. So being able to bring that awareness to people is just as important as like whatever weird indie rock that people were putting on. And then this other quotation that I really love by William Carlos Williams. I am a poet, I like poetry. And this is a quotation from one of his poems. It is difficult to get the news from poems, yet men die miserably every day for lack of what is found there. And I really like to use this quote to think about like why do arts matter? Like why is it important to have college radio and have music in our lives? And like, yeah, like it's not, this idea with poems is like, you don't read poems for like that essential, like what's happening in the world or like I need food or whatever like your quick needs are. It's for something grander that humans need, like humans really aspiring for like connection and creation and meaning in their lives. And that's something that poetry provides and something that music provides and that college radio stations can be a platform for. So, I believe in college radio because I believe in the power of local communities. I believe in music and the impact that it has on people's lives. I believe in creative expression and human connection and empathy, which is something that these things can really foster. I think that a life filled with arts is a richly lived life, and that a strong arts scene makes a community strong, and college radio plays a role in all of that. And I will finish my talk for a plug for my show. So it's early Saturday morning, and I think about half my listeners are still up from the night before, and the other half just woke up bright and early, get some grocery shopping, get a snooze on the day. So I try to cater to both those people, like A, people who are totally miserable, and B, people who are totally vibrant. So my show is called Hangover and Hangout. Saturdays, 8 to 10 a.m. 100.1 FM if you have a real radio, or go to this link on your computer. So yeah, that's everything that I have prepared. Does anyone have any questions?
Well, yeah.